Hello, I'm Maite Aparicio from Telefonica, Global CTIO. I'm going to present the Open RAN plan in Telefonica. So, I don't know if you can see the slides. No, I'm afraid, no. Yeah? Okay. So, Telefonica is an early adopter, and we are playing a very active role in Open RAN. We start our activities in 2018 when we joined to the ORAN Alliance, and when we launched to the market an RFI together with Vodafone in the context of Telecom Infra project. Another important remarks in this timeline is when we announced that we are going to work with specific partners, with Gigaterra, Xilinx, Intel, Supermicro, Altiostar, in order to accelerate the adoption of Open RAN in our deployments. Another important milestones are when we, by the beginning of 2021, when we joined the MO together with the main European operators in order to accelerate the adoption of Open RAN in Europe. By the beginning of this year, we also made some announcement. For example, the activity with other vendors like Not8, Qualcomm, and ASCII in order to increase the ecosystem. And here we present a small cell SA for indoor deployments. During all these years, we carry out some trials in our main countries. We start with the activities in Internet para Todos with parallel wireless, and we continue with trials with Altiostar and Mavenir in Brazil, and we continue with trials with the preselected partners started in 2020 in Germany. And our ambition is trying to continue with our preselected partners and trying to increase the pilots in all of our OVs in UK, Spain, and Brazil as well. But what is Open RAN in Telefonica? What is the concept? For us, the concept of Open RAN is clear. We are going to decouple the hardware and software. We are going to have the hardware based on x86 platform. We are going to have the virtualized software on top of this COTS hardware, and we are going to have a multi-vendor RAN based on the ORAN front haul. For us, it's very important to have this ORAN front haul in order to ensure that we are going to have the baseband unit, a completely different vendor than the radios. We are going to have as well open APIs that allow us to have an increase in a real multi-vendor environment, and here we are going to leverage in all the activities that the ORAN Alliance is doing. And of course, Open RAN is going to take into account the telco cloud architecture that allows us to have an automation and zero-touch capabilities. The benefits of Open RAN are clear. We are going to reduce the vendor locking. We are going to enrich our ecosystem, and we are going to have the capacity of having more use cases and more business opportunities. For us, we believe that in the short term we are not going to have a reduction in costs, but for the short, medium, long term, we are going to have these savings. And for us, a very important thing in the Open RAN is that it's a boost of innovation. But it's important to remark that Telefonica as a brownfield operator, we know that in Open RAN has some challenges that we need to solve. And these challenges are related with the lack of maturity of the solution and the extra cost that we are going to have to introduce a new vendor in our network. So we have the industry readiness, the time to guarantee that we are going to have all the different pieces that are going to work together, and we need to integrate this product in our networks. And finally, important to mention here that we are going to require new skills because we are going to manage and operate the network in a completely different way as we are doing right now. for us in Telefonica, we believe that we cannot do the Open RAN alone. We need many actors that need to be involved in this activity. We consider that we need the involvement of the standardization bodies. These industry associations are going to establish the solution and the specification of the Open RAN product in order to all of us understand the same. We need as well the collaboration between operators and not only the cooperation. The operators are the ones that are going to establish the requirements, and we are the ones that we are going to say what we are going to require and the things that we want to deploy in our networks. And we need obviously the vendors. The vendors need to provide us completely solutions. They need to provide us roadmaps that are important, that fulfill the requirements in terms of performance and in cost. And we need that as well, that the vendors trying to work together in order to provide completely pieces. And independent pieces is not going to solve anything. We need that the vendors trying to work together as well. And finally, we need the involvement of the governments. Here it's important that establish policies that allow us to accelerate the adoption on Open RAN, and as well trying to promote investment activities in research and development. So we believe that we need to work together, all the actors, in order to make the Open RAN a reality. This is the Telefonica plan that we are managing. The Telefonica Open RAN plan is taking place in 3 phases. The phase 0, thank you. The phase 0 is the pilots. We started in 2020. This activity is going to continue during this year, and the ambition is trying to have between 10 and 20 sites per OV. In the phase 2, we are going to have the initial commercial deployments, where we are going to have around 200 sites per OV, and the massive deployments beyond 2023, where we are going to move to our ambition, that is trying to have between 30 and 50% of our RAN growth based on Open RAN. And this is a plan that applies for all OVs, Spain, UK, Germany, and Brazil. As we mentioned in the timeline, one of our important milestones is when we decided in Telefonica that we are going to work with specific partners. This is the partners, and this is the things that we are doing with them. We are going to work with Altiostar as the software vendor. We are working very hard with Altiostar in order to have the 4G and 5G software features to be on pair with the traditional RAN vendors. We are going to work with Supermicro as the vendor that is going to provide the servers for the DU. We are working in trying to have a short depth solution and a completely full front access. And we are also working with a company with Silicon that is going to provide the hardware acceleration based on an ASIC solution of Intel, and we are going to have as well from Silicon the TimeSync NIT card. In the case of the radios, we are going to work with Comba for the radios in 4G. We are going to have single, dual, and triple band radio units, and we are going to work with NEC in order to have the massive antenna solution with both flavors, 3232R and 6464R. Obviously, we are going to work with these partners in order to assure that we are going to have an ORAN solution. So we are going to have the solutions, the radio units based on category A and the massive MIMO products based on category B. Obviously, we are going to have we also have the chipsets. It's obviously that Intel is going to be there as the key part of the solution of the DU, as well for the DU, for the CU, but essentially for the DU. And here we are going to use the last generation of Intel chipset, the Ice Lake SP with different options of different core cons in order to address the different scenarios that we are going to have. And we also have the ceilings as a key part of the massive MIMO solution. We are going to have for the CU Dell in some trials and HPA in the phase 0 and phase 1. This is something that is already decided in Telefonica because we are going to have HPA as the hardware preferring hardware provider for the IT infrastructure. So we are going to trying to have some synergies in other development of other network functions, and we are going to use as well as Red Hat and VMware as virtualization software. Red Hat and VMware are the two vendors that we selected in Telefonica as the software virtualization for the data center. So we are going to have this, we are going to, in some way, trying to align the synergies with other network functions as in the same case of the CU. And in order to complete all the partners that we are going to work, we have NEC as a system integrator. NEC is going to allow us to have an end-to-end solution, and it's not going to only assure that we are going to have a product, an Open RAN product that is able to live alone. NEC is also going to help us in integrate the solution in our network. So with these partners, we believe that we are going to move for phase 0 and phase 1, and we are going to succeed in this long race activity. And just to finish my presentation, here I would like to mention that the intense activity that we do during these years with the industry, with the development of the solution, with the pilots, it has given us some important lessons learned, indicated us that there are a number of challenges and legitimate concerns that they need to be fixed before moving to the massive deployment. It's important to highlight that there is a lot of noise around the word open. Open is not synonymous of easy, of plug and play, of free of charge, or even free. Open RAN is complex, and we are doing our best in order to incorporate as a part of the evolution of the access. And here you can find some of the lessons learned that we have. First, related with the time to carry out the interoperability test. This is one of the challenges that we mentioned at the beginning of our presentation, and our experience shows that we are going to require time in order to secure that we are going to have the solution. For example, trying to have the ORAN front haul in the radios takes around 12 weeks. So there is time. It's not a plug and play, so we need time to guarantee that we are going to have a solution. We need to have, when we mention here the multi-vendor environment, we are not mentioned in the way of the concept of Open RAN. We mention a multi-vendor environment in the sense that we are going to require a second option for some of the elements in order to avoid and trying to move forward. We need time. We also see that high-capacity scenarios, like the ones that Telefonica are deploying, require a complex site design. And here we are working hard in order to reduce the complexity of the sites. For example, we are implementing the low-layer split C1 in order to avoid to have a switch between the radio and the DU. And we are also working hard with Altstar and with Intel essential in order to reduce and optimize the hardware and the software and reduce the equipment that we are going to deploy in the sites. Important to mention here that Telefonica, at least in the initial deployments, we are going to have Open RAN with the use in the sites, not in a data center. In the future, probably we move or some percentage of our deployments will have the DU in a central office, but initially we are going to have the DU in the sites. There is other important lesson learned here. That is that we need time to be on parity with the traditional RAN vendors. This is something that we know that Open RAN has experience in greenfield operators, but we are a brownfield operator and we require more features, more functionalities in order to address all our requirements. So we need time to have this parity. We are moving as well to containers, and this is something that's important to mention here, because when we start our initial trials with Altostar and Mavenir in Brazil, we work based on BNFs, but now we are moving to containers, and moving to containers is something that we are doing at the same time that we are evolving the technology. So we are solving problems that is the first time that that happens, that problem. So there are a lot of things to do in order to have a completely solution based on containers in the Open RAN product that we are developing. We want to have, as a key part of the Open RAN solution, the automation. So for us, automation needs to be there since the day one. But we so take into account our experience that the effective automation is a long-distance race, and we are introduced at the same time that we are developing the product with all the hardware and software. We are migrated to containers. We are also managing all the activities related with the automation. Another lesson that we highlight in some way in our initial slides is that there might be no savings in the initial deployments. We know that we are going to have extra cost, and this is something that maybe in the initial deployments we are not going to have the savings that we expected when we start doing things in Open RAN. So we know this, and we are working in order to reduce, but not in the short term. And finally, important to mention that for early steps, for us it's key to have a system integrator. For the future, probably we will see the system integrator change the role, or is going to do a completely different, it's going to take another responsibilities. But for phase 0 and phase 1 in Telefonica, for sure we are going to require this system integrator. So just to conclude my presentation, mention here that Open RAN is continuously evolving and getting improved to be on parity with the traditional RAN vendors. For us, the Open RAN is a journey, and we are learning and implementing best practices following the industry and the standards guidelines. So we need to work together in order to make the Open RAN a reality. So that's all from my side. Okay? I don't know if there is any question or something that... No? So, okay, so... Oh.
As you were doing this, what surprised... Oh, you can... Okay. As you were doing this, what surprised you the most about what you learned, that you really didn't think was going to be a problem, or that turned out not to be a problem that you expected?
Yeah. It's, when we mentioned more of the lesson learned and in reality are challenges, and we know that the lesson learned and challenge, and we are moving in order to solve it. So yes, yeah. No, it's not a surprise. It's not a surprise. In fact, if you see the challenges, most of the challenges confirm that are lessons learned. Okay, so more lessons learned and more or less challenge, and it's not a surprise. Probably the surprise is the cost, because 2 or 3 years ago we believed that probably we are going to be there, but we are not there at this point in time. So probably is the main important one, but the other ones is as expected.
Telefonica is a service provider.
Sorry?
Telefonica is a service provider. So what is the added value for a service provider to go into the Open RAN concept?
Yes, we mentioned at the beginning that for us, Open RAN allows us to have new use cases and new business opportunity. We are going to deploy network slicing in a very more natural way. So we believe that many things that we can do with Open RAN are going to ease in some way all the use cases and business. We are going to have new business opportunities. And obviously, we have the RIC. I didn't mention the RIC in this presentation, but it's something that is there in the ORAN architecture. And for us, it's important. It's not a matter of use cases, but it's a matter of optimize their network and trying to provide the best to our clients. So, for sure, Open RAN is going to help us.
Okay. Yes, so you've indicated who your DU and RU and CU partners are. How about the mid-haul? Because you've said the DU is at the cell site, and so it's going to be mid-haul from the cell site into the CU. Have you chosen someone who's providing the equipment for the actual mid-haul?
I don't know if I understand you. I'm following you, but you mentioned that if we are going to use the same DU if when we go to the central office in the future, or?
No, well, it's basically for the transport, to get the transport from the DU to the CU.
The transport. Yes, this is the reason why we are having the DU in the sites, due to the transport requirements that we have.
Okay.
It's fine. Or?
Try it again.
Well, so the DU is going to be a different location.
Yes, exactly. Yes,
okay?
yes.
So there's got to be some kind of transport mechanism, equipment, system that connects those two.
Yes,
and some vendor provides that equipment.
Yes, but this is the traditional RAN vendors. We are going to have as a traditional RAN vendors. The transport equipment is going to be there as the traditional RAN vendor. It's not going to be a completely different. We are going to have the baseband unit is equivalent to the DU, so the transport network is going to be as the same as we are doing with the traditional RAN vendors. It's not a different situation. Okay?
Sure, you can take it because of COVID.
Oh, okay.
So, like this.
Right. I just wondered, so you mentioned your integration into your OSS layer. How well advanced is the rest of the transformation across your IT systems to be able to enable your Open RAN products?
The involvement of IT.
Yeah, so whatever you're doing with Open RAN is dependent upon your kind of sales and service layer within your IT infrastructure.
Yes, for sure. It's going to be dependent, and it's something that is, I'm part of the RAN team, but Open RAN is a transversal activity that requires the involvement of all the teams. So we are going to require the involvement of the IT colleagues in order to select the data center, the virtualization software, the CUs hardware, the automation, the operating model, and as well the use cases. So this is a whole activity, and we involve all the equipment in order to be there.
And so how mature do you feel that your whole roadmap is to be able to enable that? Because I know that that's something that lots of organizations are struggling with.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. Many more questions?
You can take it because of COVID.
Okay. So as you started studying Open RAN, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, you mentioned a lot of years. Have you noticed if the traditional vendors, did they change the approach towards flexibility and being more open for your inputs and for your needs?
The traditional RAN vendors, there are different ways of working around the Open RAN. Ericsson and Nokia are part of the ORAN Alliance, and they are there. We know that they are working not specifically in the ORAN. Nokia is working in the ORAN fronthaul and is the one that is leading the working group for that is related with the ORAN fronthaul. So Nokia is proactive and is trying to be there. Ericsson is not going to implement the ORAN fronthaul, but he is doing a very good job in other open interfaces that the ORAN Alliance are defining. So they are trying to incorporate at least some of the open interfaces that the ORAN Alliance are defining in order to be there. So we know that they are working in the RIG platform, and probably there we are going to have more vendors in order to have the X apps and our apps in order to increase our ecosystem and increase the way that we are going to optimize our networks. We believe that many times when we mention that when we are going to move to the Open RAN in 2023, 2024, 5, we believe that it's not going to be Open RAN vendors versus traditional RAN vendors. I think that it's going to be a tendency that all the vendors are going to be there in some way, with not at least fully Open RAN, but at least an important part. And obviously, Huawei is the one that is not part of the ORAN Alliance, and they is not going to work initially in this activity. Okay. So much. Any more? Oh.
Thank you for your presentation. You mentioned cost savings and the fact that you haven't observed cost savings in the long term, but you're expecting cost savings in the medium term. You haven't observed cost savings in the short term, but you expect them to kick in the medium and long term. What I was wondering is, what do you think will be the trigger for those cost savings to be realized? And this,
at least not at least the same as we are paying with the traditional RAN vendors. This is our ambition but probably reducing of about 30%. This is our ambition, but we will see. We need to see. We need to see. If I'm completely honest, we need to see. More questions? No? So thank you so much for your time.